first half of my coaching life, I was spiraling in. So I was gaining all of this knowledge, doing the old method, right? So I was observing, I was learning and developing on a long scale, a short scale, but also a long scale. I've been spiraling in and gathering information. The second half, I'm now spiraling out, which is the new method, is trying to teach to leaders and other coaches, one, to notice, two, to educate themselves, and then three, to ask and gain wisdom from someone who's been there for a long time.
Welcome to the Captains and Coaches podcast, where we explore the art and the science of leadership through the lens of athletics and beyond. I'm your host, Tex McQuilkin, and today we visit the Hilltop at Georgetown University in our nation's capital and sit down with my longtime friend, Coach Mike Hill. Every Christmas, Mike and I make it a point to connect for a workout and share our goals for the upcoming year. And this time was no different. We just decided to turn it into a podcast. Mike reveals his Quadrant Method for goal setting and the tools he's used for over his 20-year career at Georgetown to shape not just athletes, but generations of coaches that have joined the ranks of the Iron Hoyas. The self-proclaimed theoretical physicist, Mike exemplifies what it means to be both a lifelong learner and a very impactful teacher. Join us for an intimate conversation about building lasting legacies, the art of spiraling out, in control, and a list of acronyms to help gauge your coaching skills and leadership abilities. With that, let's hand it off to Coach Hill. Ready, and break. Mike's never played pickleball. Here's my hot take.
Never.
Just like the explosion of CrossFit, pickleball is facing that same just freaking skyrocket to the moon, because you're taking a lot of NARPs, which is an acronym, which we're going to get into, for non-athletic regular person. It is not a high skill sport, so you can get really good at it really fast and find success. You get a dopamine hit, and then you want to continue into it. The challenge is it becomes your personality. So I could have taken the word pickleball, cut and pasted in the word CrossFit for that same thing, and we'd have the same NARP, non-athletic regular person gets success early, dopamine hit, and it becomes your personality. It's still fun. It's still cool. I just am challenged when people take it way too seriously, because it's just exercising. And at the same time, like, don't let it become your personality. You can still have fun with it, enjoy, and challenge and compete. Just don't let it ruin your Sunday.
So is it a progression from ping pong or a regression from tennis?
I would say both of those are the ends of the spectrum. Right there in the middle is pickleball.
Ooh. I'm more of a ping pong type guy. I'm on that end.
Oh, I love ping pong. Welcome to another episode of the Captains and Coaches podcast. Take two on this episode. Thanks again, Mike Hill.
Take two.
We're dropping into Georgetown University, and this is humble beginnings for me. And then every single year that I'm here for the holidays to visit my sister, make it a point to come in and grab a workout with Coach Hill and just catch up on what has been and what's ahead for 2025. So thank you. I mean, it's 2024. We've been doing this. I met you the summer of 2012.
2012. So about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
An intro, and I got to thank Devo. Girlfriend at the time was one of Mike's former athletes who reached out and made a connection. And it has changed the trajectory of my entire professional coaching career.
Course correction. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a course correction on that. Yeah. She crushed it, worked very hard and for me here at Georgetown. And so when it came up and we had the position open, it was a no-brainer for us, for you to come in. And so you took it and added value where value was needed, and then ran with that, the good and the bad, both sides of that, right? So I guess, being here for the better part of 20 years. So being at Georgetown since 2004, I got here in 2004 with Coach Augie Morelli was here. There was only just him and another volunteer, Harrison Bernstein. So I was kind of the first intern-ish here in 2004. And then in 2005, I got hired on. So I basically worked here for 1 year for free, 19 years paid. And so really I thought after the first year I was going to leave and go somewhere else. But that turned into the next year and the next year. And then 2010, I became the head here when Coach Morelli left, and I guess I've been here ever since. I guess I could say this statement: I could stay here forever, but I could also leave tomorrow knowing that I did a great job with
Mhm.
what I had. So, kind of, I guess, live that every day.
I know the origin story. It was a lot of email outreach,
Oh yeah,
just shooting in the dark. And then Augie was one of the people that answered the email.
yep,
So now you take it upon yourself. Every email you get, you make that conscious effort to include them or at least give them an opportunity.
yeah. That was in, so it was like between 2002 and I'll say 2004, somewhere in there, maybe 2003. I just printed off a list of every strength coach in the country and started doing my own background or open source information check on every strength coach and just really finding the websites, finding their phone numbers, and sending out multiple emails, just highlighting and crossing off places where I could live, who got back to me. And then if they did get back to me, I would plug their number into my cell phone. Back at the time, it was a flip phone. And Coach Morelli was one of those ones who got back to me. And he called me 5:30 in the morning, California time. I was in San Francisco at the time, 8:30 here, and popped up as Coach Morelli. And I knew right away. I answer the phone, picked it up, and I guess I drove across country and came here.
What was that turnaround from call to day one?
So I told him I could be here tomorrow. So and then I quickly had to call him back and say, well, maybe take me a couple days to get here. But the people who are living with my cousins, and they were moving as well, so it was kind of a perfect time for all that. And so it took me roughly about a week and a half, 2 weeks to get across the United States. So I just packed up all my stuff. My parents were definitely supportive on that, and my car broke down twice on the way here. Once kind of in Utah, and another in Omaha, Nebraska, and then my wheel flew off
Oh, God.
on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. So went through some trials and tribulations of my own to get here. But when I got here, I think Augie forgot about me. But it's all worked out well.
That'll happen.
Yeah.
I've heard you spoke about creating a philosophy through Augie, a shell, where it's an environment for coaches to learn, fail, and then learn from those failures. With, scholarship athletes, that's a tough lesson because you have a responsibility to take these kids where they can't take themselves. You can't risk injury. So speak to us about that failure process without putting kids in a position to take them off the court in the field.
It was, Augie kind of being the alpha strength coach, and shell meaning, I'll say, everything around strength and conditioning. Not just sports medicine, not just sport admin, but a lot of the distractions. He kind of simplified all of that and just, gave left and right parameters, but also a floor and a ceiling for you to coexist in, and he would just kind of shepherd you back and forth, give you small little talking points. He was very big. He didn't name it this, but this is what we name it, as like auditing lifts, watching coaches, what they're doing, how they're moving around. And he would kind of course correct you and just kind of push you into different ways. And really that just, worked organically to where you organically work yourself in, or you're going organically work yourself out of the position, and I guess if you look at it as a box, a left and a right, and then a floor and a ceiling, that's kind of the shell is what he had given.
I really like that. And the important thing is he's there to help shepherd. So speak to us about his hot and cold, his temperatures. Was it always one temp? Did he turn up the heat sometimes? Or was it more of a guiding mentor, guiding lighthouse?
I think he did all of it pretty well. He had kind of the 3-level voice. I would say the alpha, which is the head. He had the assistant, but then he also had the personal voice. He definitely was a master motivator. He could definitely turn it on, but then he could definitely cross his arms and give you a good stare that would just tell you everything that you needed to know without saying anything. Good body language. So I think it was the way he was coached too, with Coach Bill Starr at Hopkins, is where he went to school and where he trained with the Starman. And I think that's kind of how he coached too. He didn't necessarily have to be a screamer and yeller, but there was different ways of motivating each athlete, but also motivating the room, but motivating the group, but also motivating the individual. So that uh, that was what he was very good at. And now, he's gone and moved on to another profession, and which is the CFO at University of Virginia, which speaks to his high intellect and his high EQ, but also IQ. Um, so I learned a lot just from being in it, but also just watching him and having little conversations throughout the years. Um, even when even when he was gone,
Mm-hmm.
just calling me and just bouncing off and taking counsel from myself, from my peers, but also outside from him.
Time out. What if I told you the path to transformation isn't about rigid schedules and crushing yourself daily in the gym? It's about moving with purpose and intention. At Captains and Coaches, we understand that true leadership starts with embodiment. When you look the part, you lead the part. But here's what makes our training programs different. The Old Bull training program adapts to your life, not the other way around. Choose your own adventure daily workouts less than 60 minutes a day with rep schemes that flex depending on your energy and feel, because we know sustainable growth happens when you become a self-leader and stop missing workouts. This creates a powerful ripple effect. Change how you move, you transform your mental emotional state. Transform your emotions, and you elevate your decisions. Better decisions, that's when your entire quality of life shifts. Join the Old Bull movement. Let's build more than a stronger body. Let's create a purposeful, powerful life on your terms. Click the link in the show notes for a 7-day free trial of the Old Bull program and get started today. And now, back to the show. Ready, and ready. As a coach getting into the industry, you're obsessed with programs, X's and O's.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that you presented programs or thought and felt the same thing, but then just this EQ and these three different voices and levels. Did he tell you these three levels, or did it take you time to feel and take note of all this emotional quotient that he's pouring into you?
No, he actually. So I would say, it took me as the observer to see that and see what he was doing. He coached me differently than Coach Foster. He coached me differently than Coach Johnson, Carl Johnson. It was just like kind of like a good psychologist. They meet you in the middle, meet you where you're at, and they push you and pull you left and right. I think it comes down to, and Coach Jesse Wright wrote a great book about soft skills, and I'm just forgetting the name of the book. But the intent is to grow.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a great book about soft skills. That's what, the X's and O's, that was the price of admission, to be honest with you. Everybody should know that. You should all pass certification. Everybody should get a 4-year degree. In my opinion, everybody should be certified. That's kind of the price of admission. The soft skills and all the outside stuff. So it's not about the program. It's about the program that you run. All of that, how it's run, how you use your soft skills, how you organize a session, how you treat people, how you look them in the eye, shake the hand, all that stuff, remember their name. That's more important than, I guess, sets and reps and percentages and phase potentiation and all of that stuff. All of this stuff is important, but it's just not gonna work unless it works, right? So you have to pour a lot into the program, but also, you still have to do the science, I guess. It's both. So it's kind of a catch-22. But he was more of the whole program. How are you running it? What does it look like? Are they even following you?
Not the program on the paper.
Yeah, not the program. The whole program.
The team, the program.
The program. Yeah. The door-to-door concept.
Not the movie.
Yeah.
The program.
Great movie.
Great movie. I've referenced it a lot this week. Yeah. A place at the starting defense, place at the table. So speak to us about reading the room, because it started as you were stepping into a collegiate weight room for the first time. Then now you are leading a collegiate team, but now you're in a role in a position where you're leading leaders, you're coaching coaches. So speak to us about the different layers of reading that room that you're into now.
So I guess when I first came in, I'm originally from Fort Dodge, Iowa, which is a very small town, but I had a farm. I didn't live on a farm, but I had to work on a farm. So like hard work, showing up early, doing your job, doing what you're told, all that stuff helped me out in California when I was at 24 Hour Fitness, but also here when I took my first job here at Georgetown. And so Augie recognized that. So some people wouldn't show up on time, right? They wouldn't deliver. They wouldn't do the hard work. They wouldn't mop the floor. There's certain things, right? So I did all that. So that was kind of situational awareness. And I'll say For me, it was more, and this took me a while to kind of learn what I did, was it's really called the old method. So OLD. So first I observed. I came in, I observed what was going on. Who were the stakeholders? How did the room work? Right? How was the organization of the organization, the university? All of it. Observe that first. And then I learned what needed to be, added to that. Let's say, what the coaches wanted. I learned, I listened, uh, I wrote down notes. I kind of created my own list of things of what I would do if I became the coach, and then I developed that. So so the last portion. So I observed first, I learned and listened, and then I developed what I thought would move us into the next, or to the move us forward into the next direction.
As you're introducing this stuff, I'm reflecting on my Georgetown time a lot, and just that observe and learn, because I felt these were my first scholarship athletes, so I felt nervous in everything I was applying. Right, jumping from Division 3 strength coach, sport coach to Division 1, that was a major jump to me, and so taking things very seriously, but still finding gaps. For me, it was the warm up.
Yeah.
So this was, okay, we're going through the same routines, and then the coaches they're basically just, they're in a sewing circle just chatting, and then me as this new guy, I felt an opportunity, because what they were doing, and it's still every single warm up I lead to or stepping into a new team with, I see the same thing. They do steps versus reps. So imagine we got 15 yards and we're doing walking lunges. They lunge, walk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps, take a left leg lunge, and then walk. Oh, I've hit my 15 yards. It's my major pet peeve. So reps, not steps. So stepping into the existing warm up,
Yeah.
and just getting the guys to actually do the warm up, and then eventually evolving to introduce new movements in there that I felt, based off watching their lift, hey, this warm up can prevent where they're failing here. I'm wasting too much time coaching here. Let's have a movement solution for that. So major gap in the beauty of the coaching staff. They're like, yeah, that sounds good. Go for it. So then finding an opportunity for me to help develop the initiative, the program, within a safe marker, safe space.
Yeah. Yeah, the warm up is, for me, something that doesn't get talked about enough, and I don't know if you're going to talk about this, is kind of the session organization. How is it organized, from door to door, door in, door out, right? Is it just, a loose warm up or no warm up? Is it command and controlled? Is it formalized? Are you are you giving a brief at the beginning, or are you just kind of explaining the lift at the end? Are you debriefing them? All that stuff. I think it's all important. And the kind of the meat and potatoes. Are you uh, you know, detaching yourself from the lift and going and checking your phone, or going out and going to the bathroom? All that stuff. How that whole thing is organized is something that, we kind of get. Right, an hour lift, 50-minute lift, but how is that organized? What are your check marks off? What do the first 5 minutes need to look like? What do the first 10 minutes need to look like? Right, what is the energy audit of that lift? All of that stuff. I think it's super important. So, yeah.
Yeah, and even having that checklist, because a new coach stepping in, you fall at the margins of your experience. So wherever they're coming from, they think that's the way, and they're going to aim to apply it, whether that's from an athletic background or an interest in certain sport of lifting, Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, etc. They think that is the way, and they want to bring it in the door versus, whatever the team culture existing is.
Yeah.
This is my favorite part of the annual conversation we have, your quadrants.
Yeah.
So setting goals for the year. This is that time of year for everyone, and you've got a system that works phenomenally. So walk us through the quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then some things that you are aiming for 2025.
Yeah. I guess if you look at like an XY, I guess, plot or quadrants, top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. My first one is my professional goals. Like, what am I trying as a professional to move towards. One is write a book. Another one is to get a PhD. Those two things, professional goals. There's others, but those are the number one and number two. The next would be team goals. So as a team, that changed because now I stepped away from basketball. Now somebody else is doing basketball here. And so I am just overseeing the whole department. So my team goals have kind of changed from a team to my staff as a team. Those team goals, sense of urgency, right? Attention to detail and team before self. Those three, I think if you can create that with any situation or any issue, right? A sense of urgency of getting this done, attention to detail of this, or team before self. I think a lot of things fall into place, those team goals. And there could be others. Those are just the three that I've, stacked with. The next one is projects, which is what am I doing? What am I currently moving the needle on day to day, I guess, little sitting projects that kind of come to me. One thing is, me being here for a very long time, the Iron Hoyas fund of giving back, like you're at where you're at now. How do you give back to what, besides the podcast, but how do you give back to the organization that helped you out? So how can we raise that and move that forward? So it directly helps and develops other coaches coming up the same path that you did. And the next is self-improvement. So this is, it could be anything from a new certification. It could be something from, books trying to read. It could be, some type of a seminar or something that I need to work on personally, which is right now I'm looking towards to get my USAW level 2 and then an FRS. So yeah.
What's the FRS?
Functional range strength certification. So it's the next thing of an FRC, functional range conditioning. So,
okay. I got to explore those.
Yeah.
These are so many certifications are popping up. This is good.
Yeah.
Got to explore a lot. I've got a full list of professional, and then where I consider team, I'm doing my part to continue to reach out to friends, mentors in the industry, keeping my college lacrosse teammates together the best I can, because we had a system in place, and of course we couldn't travel anymore due to COVID, and then dudes started having kids. So now how do we continue to grow and develop together now that travel's out? It was just probably healthier for us all, but at the same time, like I want us to continue to build our teams together, our families together, considering us a family, and then professionally, because there's a lot of good mentors that helped me along the way. Well, podcast is one way I can continue to do that, but then it's conferences or different brands that I continue to connect with, and then hey, I know some cool guys in the industry. Hand off these brands, shout out Yeti, to
absolutely
awesome professionals in the industry that are doing amazing things. Yeah. So aiming to build that network, that connection with both teammates, my professional friends, and then as my brand continues to grow, continue to help build others' brands. License to Hill. That's a brand worth getting to know.
Yeah, I guess I'll take both those. The Quadrant kind of just came up a way for me to filter a lot of things and just put it out there and put it on my whiteboard. So I'm looking at it every day. So, maybe that destination is super far away, but at least I'm looking at it every single day. I'm looking at that map. I'm moving the needle in certain different ways because there's so many things that I want to do. Some days I get frustrated where I haven't crossed anything off in a long time, but other days it's like, hey, I just hit those two things this month. So it's a way for me to filter that. And I guess, bleeding into the next thing with the license to Hill, which is my Instagram handle, which started as a play on two different things. One, 007 and my dad's love for those movies, which I think everybody growing up during that time frame loved that stuff, and Ian Fleming and whatnot. Oh, yeah. So that, but also the Beastie Boys, right, is my first tape ever as a young
I didn't know this.
A young kid. My cousins bought the Beastie Boys license to Ill tape for me, and I blasted that. I can't even remember how old I was. I was probably 7. 7 or 8 or whatever. And my cousins gave me this, and my parents were like, "What is this?"
Is this pre-parental warning?
I still have the tape. So I believe there was explicit lyrics on there. But an 8-year-old fight for your right to party is like, if you're blaring that and your parents are probably like, what is going on here? So it's kind of a bleed on those. And then obviously my last name, Hill. So License to Hill, came up with kind of like a brand of this. And then my Instagram, you know, me being in basketball for however many years, I didn't really want to be that person that was on there promoting. I hate when people say my athletes, and I shouldn't say the word hate, but I say when people say my athletes are doing this or my athletes. But the athletes that I was working with, I'm not the coach that is on Instagram and showing pictures of them. So when you go on there, everything that's reposted was posted from somebody. Georgetown basketball did, and then I reposted it to mine. I wasn't the guy that was downgrading coaching and filming at the same time. I was the guy coaching and not holding my phone or had my phone in my office, which is, I think, super important. Because we spend so much time, these kids spend so much, the athletes spend so much time in technology. It's like for that 50 minutes or that hour, you should take them out of that technology. But so Instagram came up with just a couple different things. One were shoes and the other was books, and then the other promoting podcasts and things like that. So yeah, I tried my best to push that forward, but I'm not so good at it, I guess.
Your focus was on the team. So
Yes.
one thing I absolutely love is team dynamics, and why I love sport. It's not only the strategy and the chess match between the coaches, it's the whole off season to prepare. You've identified limitations, you've identified where you can improve. So now we got time together to work on all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so just looking in the periphery, I know you've done an amazing job with certain teams. And one of my favorite things that you've done is the Breakfast Club. So speak to us about little things like the Breakfast Club that you're doing as the glue guy to help build and bring these teams together, especially in the day and age of a transfer portal and all the other things that can go wrong.
I think a lot of teams now, I definitely wasn't the one who originated it, but a lot of teams now are doing it during the summertime, which is 10 weeks of summer, is two things. Athletes they're not eating breakfast, but they also need to gain weight. So it was just kind of it was born out of a necessity to make sure that they were doing two of those things and make sure we are maximizing our potential within the summertime within that 10 weeks. So really the Breakfast Club was, instead of getting them up early and lifting weights or doing conditioning or whatever we were doing for that day, the first thing that they had to do was get themselves out of bed and go eat breakfast with us as a group. Some people, and I'll say about a third hated it, a third loved it, and a third were really kind of impartial to it. And so the people who needed it benefited, the people who didn't need it benefited, and the people who didn't care benefited from it.
Right.
So all in all, it just kind of created good habits for that 10 weeks. It got them up, it got them moving. If you're up early eating breakfast, you're more likely to stack other habits and move things forward and push things in a different way. Had you slept in and just got a crappy workout in, slugged in, pushed through the workout,
Gone out the night
before, wake them up at 7 or 8 o'clock, which we'd done before, do a workout, and then they just go home and sleep. So it started really out as kind of like a necessity, and then it just, it was born from there, and it started, that went into also stacking other habits like journaling, things like that. So during that 10-week summer, we had the guys, we got them journals. And so we put a quote of the day up on the board every single day. So that was kind of the starting point for explaining the lift or the briefing of the lift. And then it was kind of the after action. We talk about the quote at the end of the workout. So it was kind of like the knowledge nugget for that day was to leave them with something. And it usually originated around that quote. So we would talk about it, people would see it. It would be up in the gym. And I definitely wasn't the first person to think about that stuff. Kind of got the idea from Ryan Horn, who put up the kind of the quote of the day. And then once he saw it and I saw the success with it, I was like, wow, this is a good stacking habit area that I think athletes could hold on to. And so we use those journals to write that down, and then we had athletes come up with their own. And that's where it's the magic happens, is when you start having the athletes who care about that stuff, who start coming up with things on their own. And some people, some of those athletes, and we only did it for 10 weeks. So some of the athletes did not like the journal, but they were kind of, it was a habit that they did just in the weight room. Some people did. And they're not going to reach everybody. And the whole point of it was just to get things started for that 10-week summer, for that initiation, and then go from there. Do with it as whatever you want to. But maybe later on in life, you'll come back to it and think about those things and think about those quotes, and maybe that'll form something later on in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's incredibly important for these young men, because these are anchors. These are core memories that are healthy. So they're putting in the work. They're waking up. They're putting on weight. They're training. They're journaling. So all of these are healthy behaviors that they can come back to later in life. Maybe things aren't going as they planned. Okay, when was life in order?
Yeah.
It was 1, 2, 3 ways to start the day. So it's important for those anchors. So that's why I love high school athletics. That's why I love college athletics. Is for young men and women, we're creating those anchor behaviors, those core memories that are healthy. And this is where coaches can ruin that. They can take advantage of their responsibility. They can talk down. They can demean. They can just play power dynamics with these kids.
Yeah, absolutely can.
And then turn those into anchor core memories. It's just on the negative sense. So they have and develop a unhealthy relationship with hard work or authority or being yelled at. So it can go either way. So that's the importance. That's why good men like you are here.
Thank you.
So what I also love about teams dynamics is picking captains. Every team is different, and you've been a part of some fantastic Hall of Fame coaching staffs and Final Four runs, historic stuff. So speak to us about the different ways that captains were chosen and different things that you've learned along the way that you can hand off to coaches.
Speaking specifically, I guess, with basketball, I've seen the gamut. I've seen captains being picked by the coach. I've seen captains organically work themselves up. I've seen captains self-organize and they name the captains. I've seen no captains at all. And so I guess you go from where Big Coach Thompson, how he named his captains, to JT3, how he named his, to Coach Ewing, how that worked out, and how he named captains or didn't name captains. I think, the captains are normally in basketball, they're normally the top players, really. I'll two caveats, either senior players or the top, right? Which normally, is on the basketball court, right? That captain, which is needed. You need the person who's going to get buckets, who's going to score, who's going to be that playmaker, who's going to be that captain. But really, everyone knows the captain underlying, who is actually doing everything right, who's showing up to practice, who's going to class, who's doing all the right things, right? Hopefully, everybody has somebody like that on the team, but most likely is not the one who's the playmaker, who is the number one. So I guess I've seen a delicate balance between all of it. When we were going very well, when things at Georgetown basketball were going very well, the captains, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was Jeff Green, but also was John Wallace. And both those guys were model citizens, and they were playmakers. So it was a very healthy mix of both. Where I've seen other teams, won't name them, is they've had captains who are the worst outside the locker room. We still won some games, lost some games, but I think you need a good marriage between the two, between the on the court performers and the off the court performers.
Sometimes, and I've heard it spoken this way, there's the best guy on the team, then there's the best guy for the team.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah. So Martin Rooney is from one of his books. And sometimes, and I'm not mad at two captain system on that to where you have the guy who's the action, the behavior specialist. He's doing everything right and making sure, doing his best to shape the behavior of the team and the squad. And then the guy, the dude, still respects that. So they hopefully have a good relationship and balance that off one another.
We know as strength coaches, there's always that person that works the hardest in the weight room that is probably not the one on the field or court that is the number one. But I guess that's what the beauty of the weight room is. We call it the weight room sheriff program, but the weight room sheriff is the person who is, the model citizen within the weight room structure or environment, who is doing all the sets and reps, who is holding others accountable, holding themselves accountable, doing all the right things that you should be doing, but maybe just doesn't have that talent or the skill on the opposite side. And so you want to find ways to foster. That's why I love the weight room with that, because it gives an athlete another chance to excel in something. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. I mean, I was good at everything, but not great at anything. But the training for me, I love the training. I started a long time ago. I've been training, I don't even know how many years now, but it was sixth, seventh grade when I started. And there was a coach, a former Marine, Mr. Bristol, who had an early morning lifting program. And so my parents thought I was crazy, but I would wake up at 6 a.m. and go there early. And then we had this little breakfast program that we would eat breakfast afterwards. But it was just basically like Nautilus machine calisthenics. But we were pumping iron at 7 years old in the morning time before school, which is crazy to think, And I guess I've never stopped.
Yeah.
Which is wild to even think about nowadays. And so the training for me was always, and I'll say training or workouts or fitness or strength and conditioning or sports performance or whatever you want to call it, it was ingrained in me in a really young age. And so I've just kind of taken that and, I wasn't, again, not the best, not the great at everything, or not great at anything, but good at everything. And I was one of those ones who got brought up within that weight room, I guess, sheriff position, where I loved the training. I did not waver on any of that stuff. I tried to do extra, spend a lot of time on my own training and doing things, whether right or wrong. And so kind of forged my way into this position. Yeah.
And then able to read the room and find the guys that still have that same connection to training.
Yeah.
And then helping them work on now their leadership, their ability to motivate individuals, to get them to focus and move with intent as well. The important thing for a coach in that role who's got a weight room sheriff is training them on how to build guys up versus bring them down.
Yeah.
Versus hey, why can't they just do this? So you bring your negative thoughts to that weight room sheriff, that starts to build resentment in there. If they could just, why can't they, or they should, if only.
Yeah.
Language like that, spoken from a coach to a captain, that's negative, and that's where you start to build in. Because he, whether he realizes it or not, or she, is looking up to you on how to lead. So that effectively you're teaching them how not to appropriately lead and motivate. And I see this all the time within captains who then start to bark and yell at the teammates. Freshmen do this. Go get this. Versus, hey, let's get this. Or calling out guys specifically, hey, Mike, I need you to go get the goals, get the ball bucket. Versus, freshman, go get the ball bucket.
Yeah.
It's probably much like being a father.
Yeah. Geez.
Every little thing you say or do, they're picking up on and observing and watching, and then that becomes the norm. Hopefully it's not bad words.
I'll say, when you say that, there was not an intentional knowledge transfer point with this, but Augie used to always say to athletes and to myself, "Can you do me a favor?" He would say, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you go and pick that up?" Or, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you mop this floor?" Or, "Hey, can you do me a favor and do this?" There was an intention with that, but the way he phrased that, I still say the same thing. "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you put that bench back? Or can you do me a favor? Can you move those plates over there?" And I think the way how you phrase that in verbal judo, how you talk to people and how you phrase things, definitely matters. right? I was not the coach that was going to come in here and scream and yell and give you directives and or hand you a sheet of paper that says all these things need to be met, otherwise you're insubordinate. It was more, I'm going to let you organically work within the wild environment that is the strength and conditioning, that is the weight room. And I'm going to course correct just like Augie did. Left and right, there's a floor, there's a ceiling to this, right? And you need to work with inside that shell or that box or that proverbial square. And then help you, guide you in, guide you out. Some people can't handle that. They need the left, they need the right. They need to be told that you need to check mark all of these things off. And so, but that's not the way I grew up. That's not the way I was coached. And I think for me, it's the best way to teach and move the education of a strength coach.
Well,
Just,
I
yeah.
concur. And it is a mix of autonomy within walls, and there's 6 levels of delegation. So I encourage everyone that's listening, Google literally 6 levels of dedication, and the level 1 is do as I say.
Mm-hmm.
So you are literally handing them exactly how you want it done, and eventually works up to level 6, which you probably don't have a lot of level 6s out there, which is it's full trust and control. So it grows in that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's definitely a tool, and I like that. If coaches are in that level 1 development, and you're in, say, an 8-week summer program, I think you're wasting your 8 weeks, because that's not real coaching. It's dynamic, it's fluid. If I see this with one particular athlete on the program, it's not going as I intended.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we're going to course correct in mid-session. That's coaching, that's development. So the awesome experience I had, so at Georgetown summer, I wasn't working with the football team, so I took a summer off to go down to University of Texas, take an internship, Jeff Madden and Benny Wiley.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a mix of, we had a specific program, but you got 150 dudes sweating in humid environment. I mean, we're talking Austin, Texas, 110 degrees. It was chaos in an organized developmental way. But then Georgetown prepared me to succeed there,
Mm-hmm.
and then gain responsibilities through that internship, to where it was trusted by Mad Dog and Benny Wiley to do certain things that they asked. I was the guy they looked to. And then what was cool for me, for Madden, all the strength program was written, and then he would just watch and observe, and then we would go out to the DKR stadium,
Uh-huh.
weight room, right to the football like game field was where we did all the conditioning, and he would just have it in his mind. So I was right there next to him, and I just had everything he said. I had to write it down, and then we'd set up, the guys would do it. Then I would take all that, and I had to type it up for him and basically build his summer workout training and program book, and then like catalog that. So
Yeah.
just watching, observing, it's like a captain of a ship. Oh, the wind's going this direction.
Yeah.
We're going that way. So it was
like
just cool to observe by the feel. And then
Yeah.
always took the time that day and I still got all the sticky notes. Just have, okay, here's the question I'm going to ask him as we take this long trek back to the weight room. So it took my personal time to try to get some mentorship from coach who's been around since the beginning, him and
Yeah.
Mac Brown, way back in UNC. He's one of the first strength coaches. All that to say is like just being told delegation level 1, that's not coaching. If I'm still in college, maybe for my bachelor's,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm freshman, sophomore, junior, sure, level 1. But a lot of the professionals that you're bringing in, they need more than that, which, I mean, they get the opportunity to coach and lead here, which is awesome.
We have 30 sports here, so I'd say half full-time, half part-time. So you're getting a good mix, but also most of our full-times are fully embedded strength coaches with sports. So part-time staffers are having multiple sports. They are have jobs outside of here. It's hard to create positions when there's a lot, like I said, the NIL, the transfer portal, the house settlement case, all of that stuff. There's a lot of uncertainty with roster management, stuff like that. But coming here and having somebody like myself to help, guide you, but also have Coach Foster here to help guide you with your programming as well. So I think we have a good setup to where, we expose you to something, to a group or a team environment, and then help support you in whatever area you need to have support in. It could just be, you need to get your receipts and your data collected. It could be you need to work on your soft skills. It could be your session organization. It could be your 3-level voices. It could be your programming. I would find most of the time, coaches coming in, they think they know a ton about programming, and then you put them in front of 80 kids or athletes, and you find out that quickly doesn't work. It quickly doesn't mesh well, or you are giving them too much autonomy, or you just become a DJ. And I guess that'll lead into the next thing. Are you doing a couple things? Are you a CDCer or are you a DCDer? And I'll preface this by saying, I use a lot of acronyms and trying to write a book. That's part of my professional acronym academy. But one, are you CDCer? First, I'll say first the DC deer. The DC deer is a DJ, right? They create conversations and they create distractions. So everyone knows that coach that just turns on the music. They walk around, they have conversations, and then all of a sudden they're distracting, and then the workout's gone a different route. The other route of that, a CDCer, would be somebody who's concentrating on coaching cue per minute, who is directing the lift or directing which the different coaching cues or different aspects of the lift or the direction or the energy audit of that lift, and then coordinating everything all together from the start and or the finish, right? So if you're doing one or the other, the session organization on that, you would want to be more of a CDCer, really. It's a bad acronym, but talking about session organization, from the beginning, a lot of times strength coaches, they'll have the card, they'll explain the lift at the beginning, they'll let them go, there'll be a DJ, and then at the end, they'll complain how bad it's gone. So you be an explainer and then a complainer, rather than, and I'll use, I guess, a couple military terms, a briefer at the beginning. When you explain things, hopefully they understand it, but when you brief, you should be briefing in a simple way to where they're understanding all of it, right? Mm-hmm. And or you need to stop and maybe course correct yourself. Maybe stop in the middle of your session and bring them all together and break it down and give them a kind of knowledge nugget and to move forward. So
yes, yeah. And that's the important thing, and that's high social self-awareness and social awareness, because you maybe have felt that you taught this lift or said the intent of the program. However, athletes are not executing as well. So I could get mad at them for not going well, or hold the mirror up. Okay.
Yeah.
Time out. I'm going to slow this down for you to make sure we are hitting all the points, which in the long run is going to benefit them, because then they'll understand it better at this moment in time. And then, okay, they're going to hold on to that nugget, hopefully, and then also realize when coach hits the record scratch on as the DJ, oh, I better listen up because I'm not focused.
No, absolutely. And I think, doing every day, telling the athletes or explaining things or debriefing them or after action report or however you want to phrase it. How did things go? How well? What do we need to change, right? What are the nuggets? That's where the quote came in for me with men's basketball or running a session was, let's talk about the quote at the beginning. Let's talk about it at the end so I can leave you with something, some kind of a knowledge nugget, transfer or something to keep you thinking, keep you engaged for the next time, rather than just complaining at the end of the lift and telling them this was terrible, or, hey, this was a great lift, and maybe it wasn't a great lift. So I think there's definitely how you organize that from door to door in, door out, when they walk in the door until they leave, is a very important skill that doesn't get talked about a whole lot.
I see this with sport coaching as well. So I still maintain coaching sport, and then when I'm visiting schools, aim to observe a sports practice. Again, team dynamics, I love it. So what I find successful teams do within the sport practice is you have a coordinator. He's got the whistle and he's initiating the drills.
Mhm.
If it's a one-on-one drill, he's initiating the whistle means go for this next group. The challenge is when the coordinator and then the coaching cues per minute person
Yeah.
are the same person, then my whistle stops. The whole team doesn't get to run the drill, but I'm coaching that that small group or that person. So now I'm losing reps per minute because my coaching cues per minute is increasing. So if I have a coordinator running in the same drill I have a coach, okay, they'll run their drill. Coordinator gets the other group going,
Mhm.
and then I'm right here on the side coaching those two people if it's a one-on-one. We're coaching just the offense for that. So then they go to the end of the line, they're thinking about what I just said, and then two groups have already gone. So that
Yeah.
flow, we're increasing the amount of reps because and I tell this to coaches, if we're moving, we're learning. So if I have a coordinator maintaining the reps per minute, and then I have a coach on that same drill doing the coaching per minute, then we're going somewhere. What I really love to see is when the athletes, they're increasing that coach per minute. Because
Yeah.
now, okay, that coach can go off to another segment or another group and have his impact. If my leaders are starting to, and I consider everyone a leader, if they're starting to communicate what to do.
Mhm.
But that's an arm wrestle. That's almost a year in to develop a coaching culture.
Yeah, the coaching cue per minute is something that doesn't get talked about. We talk about a lot here. It's making sure that you're also, if there was a heat map or a GPS attached to you as a coach, where are you moving around to have touch points for the athletes? Are you neglecting one portion of the weight room just because they're good lifters or they're not good lifters or whatever? Making sure that you're giving each group. Each team, each individual, something. It shouldn't just be a, hey, good job. Oh, that looks good. There's always something going wrong. Or just saying hi, checking up on them, how much weight they're doing, watching sets, watching reps, moving around. And I think that's important too as well, because you can't just be the coach that explains a lift and stands in the same position all day. You need to move around. Need to be dynamic for that 45 minutes, for that hour, whatever it is. And all the athletes should be seeing you, every other set, I'll say. If you're walking around. And you should be saying, depending upon, that's scalable, really. Like with men's basketball, there's 15 guys, and I had them sometimes split into groups. So I was all into every single set and rep. If you have 80 swimming and diving athletes in here, then yes, your heat map should reflect a good sprawl across the entire weight room. So two things I think are very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on the team, and then
Mm-hmm.
how well you coach, and depending on how you want to organize your weight room, as well as what the sport coach wants. I recall, and I just remember this for Coach Warren, men's lacrosse. I was that first year, that first semester.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun installing a culture, I'll call it.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of kids to quit. And then once the team was set for the spring, we had certain organization of the different weight racks where we had freshmen, and lacrosse doesn't have a lifting culture, especially 12 years ago. So new kids that were on the program, they'd never touched a weight before. So we had a specific space in the weight room for those guys. And then as soon as Warren observed that, he wanted everybody together.
Yeah.
So then it was starting to put juniors and seniors, experienced lifters with these freshmen. So that was the mix up and the jumble to where on paper, that's probably not the most optimal way to long-term develop these freshmen. But at the same time, okay, we're trying to install a culture here first. The program speaks for itself on that respect.
Yeah. I mean, we did, so with men's basketball, I did, I put freshmen with veterans at every single rack. So you were learning from, hard, but the captain and then your coach, right? So the three different C's. And, what you want, or what I wanted, was for the veteran lifter at that rack to be that coach when I turned around or I wasn't looking to help that freshman or veteran, or help that freshman and veteran relationship, and foster that within the weight room, because that's what they're going to be doing on the court anyway, or they are doing it on the court. That veteran player should be teaching that freshman.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you said, it looks good on paper when you have a developmental group or a freshman group that's on the corner, or an injured group for that matter. A lot of people will segment out the injured athletes to one end or one side, but keeping that group together, or that dynamic, so they are learning from each other, and learning top down, but also bottom up. Both is I think very important to creating that culture. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
very important. And not segmenting out and or segregating out, different groups to areas of the weight room. So
Yeah. And then it's the expectation of a sport coach on the court and the field that the freshman is communicating
Yeah.
up to the senior. So if a senior makes a mistake, freshman still needs to communicate that, or to get them in the right position if they're not where they need to be. So the weight room then creates that communication, that culture. Hey, we need the bar set here.
Yep.
I have 25s on there. What do you have on there? So equaling weight. So we're establishing that communication. Love everything about it. You said pouring in and pouring out, and I want to highlight that. I don't want that to be a throwaway comment. I've also heard grow in or grow out.
Yeah.
So over your 20 years, speak to us about the evolution going from pouring in to now pouring out. And then, I mean, it's tough for me if I see somebody that needs help but doesn't
Yeah.
want help. Like, how do you balance that level of mentorship for that individual?
Yeah. Organically working yourself in or organically working yourself out. Pouring in, pouring out. I'll say clockwise, counterclockwise, spiral in, spiral out. One of the books that you had me read, Halftime, talks about pouring in and pouring out. And I am, I guess, for me, a very, symbolistic visual person. So a spiral in and a spiral out for me, or you could say clockwise or counterclockwise, for me resonates with me a lot. I think me being at the age that I'm at, I'm more spiraling out, right? And it doesn't mean that we're all dying, right? So I think the first half of my life, or first half of my coaching life, I was spiraling in. So I was gaining all of this knowledge. So I was, looking at doing the old method, right? So I was observing, I was learning and developing on a long scale, a short scale, but also a long scale. So I've been spiraling in and gathering information. And the second half, I'm now spiraling out, which is the new method, is trying to teach to leaders and other coaches, one, to notice, two, to educate themselves, and then three, to ask and gain wisdom from someone who's been there for a long time. And I think for me, that new method, I've noticed more. I've tried to educate myself and others more, but use the wisdom that I had spiraling in, the whole time spiraling in, is to now spiral out and give that. It's not that to say I wasn't giving as much. It's just in a different way. I'm more, methodical-ish. Some people don't need to hear certain things, or maybe just let it play out. Right? Don't have a knee-jerk reaction to one thing. There may be some context behind that. And so, there's a lot of ways that can go, spiraling in, spiraling out, or organically in and organically out. But I think me on the second half of my coaching life, I'm more spiraling out, right? Mm-hmm. So in giving more.
Yeah, and a lot of interns, a lot of young coaches have been through the Georgetown, the Iron Hoya program. Mm-hmm. So in that same respect, how do you choose which ones to truly pour in, or just let themselves grow out of the school, of this weight room, of the industry almost?
Yeah, I guess there's a old quote that says, "The teacher will appear when the student is ready." I've been here for 20 years. There's been some students that have been ready right away. There's been other students who've left, that have turned around and been like, "Oh, wow, this is what you were saying." But I'm not one to force anything on anyone. You can't force anything to grow, right? You can try to. You can give water, you can give soil, you can give a lot of different things.
Was that C.T. Fletcher?
Yeah,
Commands you to grow.
there you go. I command you. Uh,
But he's putting in the work.
He's put in the work. For me, it's, take the wisdom, take the knowledge, take the experience, take the education, and grow at your own pace. And there's different schools of thought with a lot of that stuff, but I think for me the best way or for me the best coaches who came in and absorbed the good and the bad. Those are the ones who are very successful. Here, like yourself.
I'm just having a fun time. I'm
Yeah.
telling the story that I needed way back when. You're a storyteller yourself. We got a couple books on the horizon. Can you give us a
Oh man.
a preview, your mission as a storyteller and the legacy you're aiming to leave behind through those?
One of the books is called Theoretical Physicist. And so what that is a lot of symbols and terms that I had learned throughout my strength and conditioning career. The first one is light cone, and that is relativity, Einstein's special relativity light cone, which talks about space and time, but really that's coaching when you break down that symbol. The next one, Fibonacci spiral, that is, you're seeing that a lot, I guess, with Gotha. You're seeing a lot with different, you use it at different lot of patterns, but body patterns, but really it's programming. When you look at it, it's actual programming. There's a progression, there's a regression of programming, there's a spiraling in, there's a spiraling out. The next one, Sierpinski triangle. So that's a triangle within triangles, which is a fractal pattern, and that is progression and regression. Ben Franklin's magic circle is a circle within a circle, concentric circles, and within that, there's tons of different things that can happen, which is movement. So when you think of it, us as coaches, is how do you create drills? How do you create movement? Well, it starts with one circle, works itself out, concentric circles out in kind of an XY plot. But within that circle, within that magic circle, there's movement, there's motion. The next, yin and yang, so is balance, how you're working with everything. It has a balance. Everything has a plus and minus. Everything has a yin and yang. The next is chaos theory, which is there's a lot with, I guess, chaos theory, but that's periodization and how you're working within your periodization and your programming. And then Metatron's cube, that's kind of organization, how you're bringing it all together, and which is the last one, which is the flower of life, which is complexity within simplicity. And so using all of those symbols in different ways, they're all interchangeable with everything that I just said. With coaching is also balance, yin and yang, Sierpinski triangle, progression and regression is also chaos theory, is all of them together. And so, I guess it's on a different level. There's ideas, there's philosophies behind that. But for me, all of those symbols kind of resonated in those different areas where chaos theory is programming. Fibonacci spiral can be coaching. It can be nutrition. It can be a lot of different things. So, yeah.
To quote Steve Jobs, creativity is in the connections.
Yeah.
And exploring another exercise called lateral thinking.
Yeah.
So if we're only focusing on our box, the solution is somewhere outside the box. Somebody else has come up with it and solved a different problem, and we can bring that solution into our environment.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a lot.
Dude, thanks for your time. This is one of my favorite conversations every year, and then it just sparks momentum and motion and action for me each year. So I'm grateful for it, and glad we got the opportunity to share with the audience here.
Yeah.
So where can people go to learn more, follow you, and continue to take away from everything that you're pouring out?
Yeah, I guess you can go to my Instagram, license_to_Hill, license to Hill. Not very active on Twitter, I guess more active on Instagram, but or look me up at Georgetown, GUHoyas.com. Yeah.
He answers emails.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a
All
good
of
thing.
them. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that does it for the Captains and Coaches podcast. Thank you very much. Bye.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Captains and Coaches podcast. Shout out and thank you to our sponsor Yeti for the awesome drinkware. If you like what you heard here today on the show, be sure to like, subscribe, rate, review, follow, all that good stuff for new episodes every Wednesday. Thank you to Coach Hill for the many years of friendship, leadership, mentorship. I appreciate you, brother. With that, we'll see you next time on the Captains and Coaches podcast. Thank you for helping us raise the game. Bye.